Wayne Spooney here for the First to the Floor podcast. I am rolling solo insofar as the other First to the Floor members of the team. The Aussies are not here. They're both busy. So, we went to the bullpen. We went to our guy. I got Dan Greenberg, a.k.a. Barstool Greeny, with me. What's up, Greeny? How you doing, buddy?
Doing well. I can't do an Australian accent, so we may, unless you can, we may be out of luck for this episode.
You get a couple of beers in me, and I'll try to put it on. When Ben and I were at the finals, at one point, I was talking an Australian accent for far too long. So,
which is sad because I was going to talk about how much I love watching the Olympic broadcast with the dude who I'm pretty sure is from Australia.
Yeah,
I think we need more Australian accents in our lives.
Hell yeah, man. It's certainly enriched my life talking to two Aussies, and I occasionally use the phrase mate. Like, hey, me and my mates, like, wait a second. This is weird. But all right, before we jump in, we're obviously going to talk about Team USA, maybe hit the other games, the other quarterfinal games, and then maybe a quick look at the semifinal games. But please like and subscribe. Obviously, the playback, I'm not sure what Jake's doing for the playback, but I'm sure he'll be tweeting about what his plans are if he can get it going, and he'll be posting in the Discord. Check out my Summer League Diaries. Greeny is featured in part 2 of the Summer League Diaries. Yeah, including the picture we all took.
Nice.
And if you like this show, check out How About Them Celtics and Celtics Lab, also on CLNS. So Team USA wins 122-87, kind of one going away. It got a little close here, like close to 10 here or there. But Jayson Tatum, 20 minutes, 1 of 5 shooting, no threes, passing up open threes at times. 5 points, 3 rebounds. How worried are you, dude? Like, how are you getting worried?
No, I'm just, I've accepted the fact that, he isn't going to be the main focus of any lineup that he's on and that he's in, right? Like, he's not going to get over 10 shots. He's there to soak up minutes and to do a little bit of everything. And that, for me, that's fine. I think my frustration was only, Steve Kerr gaslighting me and telling me there's no way you could work him into a lineup, which is just, factually inaccurate. So for me, with all these guys, I just want to see them play because I enjoy watching them on the court, and I need them to stay healthy. Anything they do or don't do is gravy. I think we're all assuming they're going to end up, winning the gold medal, which is, that's just a resume booster that allows me to talk more shit. I don't really, there's when like LeBron and KD are leading the team and they average like 10 and then 13 points a game, no one's going to be going crazy. And I also wouldn't even look in too much to what this means for the regular season because his role is going to be wildly different on the Celtics as it is here. I think it's fair to say, like, it'd be nice if he hit a jumper, right? Like, just so we could see it, just so we can be reminded that he has the ability to hit a jump shot. But, until I see him start passing up these threes in preseason and regular season games, like you mentioned, I'm not worried at all.
Yeah, and he's in a role where, like, Tatum, he's had games, right, where he shoots, like, 5 of 20 and stuff like that. He's just kind of, like, in one of those games, but he's not playing enough and he's not getting enough shots up that it's, like, stretching out over multiple games. So,
right. And it's like when you're in these Olympic games and you're really only working in 3 or 4 minute shifts, like, everything you do, both good and bad, is magnified, right? Like, if you have, like, a good comparison is like Devin Booker, right? Shooting the ball insane right now. It has warranted his minutes. Over the course of an NBA season, he's not this level of catch and shoot type player, but he's able to show it in his short spurts that leaves that lasting impression. It's the same thing with Tatum, same thing with Derek, same thing with Drew.
Yeah, it's funny. Jayson Tatum was a more efficient catch and shoot 3-point shooter than Devin Booker this season.
It's crazy.
So yeah. It's just the nature of entirely small sample sizes, and I always this is like one of my big theories that, like, some guys just need to touch the ball to, like, get comfortable in a game, and I think Tatum is absolutely one of those dudes. At least, like, when he's in a shooting rut, he almost needs to, like, shoot himself out of it, and he's just not going to get an opportunity to do that. Booker, not really one of those dudes, apparently. At least he's showing he's not in these Olympics. But yeah, he had 18, 5 of 7 from 3 this game. hate to admit it, I'm definitely the podcast's number one LeBron hater. 12-3-9. That first half, dude, he looked like friggin' Magic Johnson.
Yeah, he's had some turnover issues, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, he's been playing the most complete basketball, I think, of anybody so far. And I mean, these last two games, I don't even have a problem with Anthony Edwards sort of, riding his hot hand. As long as he's playing within the offense, give him 13, 15 shots a game if he's going to keep shooting 60%. My only issue, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Serbia, is Steve Kerr going to gaslight me again and tell me that he can't be on the floor? And I don't know if Embiid plays. They're already introducing some ankle soreness. Who knows? But that's what I want to see, because if he doesn't play Tatum, what are you doing, dude? This is a chance to get to the gold medal game. Jayson Tatum is good enough to be on the floor. If he does play Tatum, then he sort of, and everyone's healthy, he sort of backtracks everything he said after the DNP in the opener. So it's like, one way or another, Steve Kerr is going to make me angry. I just can't wait to see which way it's going to be.
Yeah, right. We will find out. The Embiid stuff is so out of the Joel Embiid playbook to be hint that there's some ankle soreness. A game against Jokic is coming up. I wonder if he won't play. But the funny thing is, this is kind of the one matchup we really need him for, because
this in France, and he definitely had his issues in the group stage. I mean, Jokic, he ate him for lunch, right? Yep. Defensively. But having said that, I think Embiid looked the best he's looked all Olympics in this last game. So it's maybe now, if he has a little bit more confidence, he's seen the ball go in, maybe that helps him. But if he dodges it, he's going to the internet's going to be a crazy place for him. If again, he's dodging Jokic in a big game, it's just, you can't do that. You got to suit up and play if you're healthy.
Gotta play. And even if it's a little soreness, man, you gotta at least get out there and show your face, I feel like.
Having said that, though, if Drew Holiday is experiencing any ankle soreness, I would kindly appreciate him to sit everything out and not play again. So
first flight back to Boston. Yeah, first flight back to Boston. Speaking of Drew and Derek, kind of maybe their quietest game so far of the Olympics, but which is still they were still great, honestly, doing all the stuff they do. Drew 9-3. Extremely solid on both ends. Derek 5-4-4, only 2 of 6 shooting, but if that's 3 of 6, he's shooting 50%. We haven't heard from you. We've been kind of gushing about the two Celtics guards. I know you have been on Twitter as well, but how have you felt this game? Less so, but more Olympics Drew, Olympics Derek generally.
It just warms my heart that all these people are now Derek White's good. And it's yeah, man. What do you think we've been saying? And I just, it's not surprising that, the ultimate glue guy is thriving as the ultimate glue guy in this roster. I think, it's a little surprising that Drew has started, but I've loved how he's played. I mean, from October until now, I just feel like he's been so insanely consistent. And I think a large part of it is his role on Team USA, and Derek's really, but their role is really no different on this team as it was for the Celtics, right? You're hearing Steph talk about how he's sort of struggling just being an off-ball decoy, not getting his touches. We're seeing Tatum struggle with his issues. Drew Holiday and Derek White haven't had to change a single thing of how they play during the year. So it's no surprise that I think they've been, outside of Durant and, LeBron, probably the two most consistent players, on the roster. And listen, if Drew's feeling young again to the point where he's throwing down lefty dunks, I don't feel as bad about that, how that extension is going to age, because he doesn't look like he's aging. And I just, it's so impressive what he was able to do the last Olympics, going from winning a title to stepping right on a plane and, going to Tokyo. For him to now do it again, I mean, listen, it just solidifies him. I mean, I don't want to say he's Hall of Fame stamped, but 2 titles, 2 Olympic gold medals, some All-NBA defense. I don't know. I think he's making a case for himself. And I'm just, just stay healthy and keep this, this duo going into the year.
Yeah, Drew's got a couple All-Star games under his belt too. So I absolutely think that the NBA Hall of Fame, or the Basketball Hall of Fame rather, is not
Mhm.
particularly difficult to get into, at least compared to baseball and football. So I think Drew, he has like two more good runs in him with the Celtics, two more good
Mhm.
seasons. I think he's a shoe-in Hall of Famer. Um, but yeah, they've been awesome. That's a great point. It's like, oh, you need Drew and Derek to play next to three high usage stars. Like, well, we've been doing
Yeah.
that for 82, 100 games this season. So
Yeah, like
that's very simple.
Drew Holiday has a spot up in the corner or flash to the dunker spot. Okay, he's only been
Yeah.
doing that for 120 games already. So,
Yeah, right. He just eviscerated the Mavs on the short roll, and now it's
yeah.
Kevin Durant hitting him on that pass. So, um, yeah. What about the? I guess going back to Tatum really quick before we kind of move on here to the most important matter, which is Tatum's new shoes. What
Mhm.
about the like narrative around here? Because I around Tatum rather, I feel like I've seen people using this like non-shooting stretch. Like even I was listening to Simmons today, and he was like, "If you take the Eastern Conference Finals last year and this playoffs, he's shooting 28% from three." And it's like, well, you're also ignoring the 37% regular season he just
During
had.
the
Like,
year, yeah.
yeah, man. So like, do you feel like the narrative's going overboard on Tatum?
Well, I think there's two groups of this narrative, right? There's all the very upset and very hurt fans that weren't able to do anything during the season. They're upset that Tatum and they all won the title, so they're using this as to get all that out of their system. Those people you don't have to pay any attention to, in my opinion. That's just their coping mechanism for them not being able to accept their new basketball reality. The
Yeah,
other side, like the Simmons in them, I think there's some merit to it because the production is the production, right? Like if Tatum was shooting 55% from three, none of us would be saying, "Oh, this is a small sample size. You're cherry picking." Like
right.
like shooting under 30%. Yes, it worked out for them this year. That is not exactly a world I want to be living in moving
No.
forward, right? Because their path will be different moving forward. There'll be different situations where maybe someone other than KP is hurt, and I just think as long as he mentally doesn't create the yips, right? Like if he still shoots with confidence, I don't care about make or miss. I care about his decision making. If he's the Celtics are at their best when he remains a threat that opposing defenses have to worry about as a shooter. If they're going to lay off him, it's going to allow him to catch a rhythm. We're not going to have any issues. But
Yeah.
if his shooting becomes like a non-factor, teams are just going to sag the paint, and it's going to it's going to grow into a larger issue within how the Celtics offense operates. But I don't know, man. I mean, it's like everybody's playoff efficiency goes down, right? Like Jaylen Brown shot just as bad in the finals from three, and we're not really hearing about it. Luka missed like 23 straight threes in the finals,
Yeah.
and you don't really hear about it. So I think part of it is this obsession with nitpicking Tatum's game because I think part of it is how successful he's been right from the jump. It's like we got to find something that's wrong with this guy who appears to be like this perfect citizen, perfect father. It's like there's got to be something, but I do think there's merit to saying, moving forward, he's going to have to just shoot league average, right? Like
Yeah.
34% is good enough. 28%, it didn't bite them in the ass this year, but that's playing with fire moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. And it just feels like to me he just needs to like get in a gym for like a week and just kind of work the kinks out or something. And I also think there's probably a fatigue factor here too, man. Like he just
Yeah.
played 100 games and Tatum doesn't really take games off and he plays shitloads of minutes and playoff minutes, even though they did not have the most arduous playoff journey of all time, they still put a lot of miles on you. So, and I wouldn't be shocked if he wasn't exactly like peak training regiment that like couple weeks after the finals either.
Yeah. And also, I don't want to make an excuse for him, but you watch some of his closeouts, he's going like 60% speed. So it's like, I think part of that is maybe playing into it. But I just think, he's a streaky shooter. He always has been, right? He's not Sam Hauser where like he wakes up out of bed and is a 41% 3-point shooter.
Right.
He's like you said, he needs to shoot his way out of things. he has one game, he makes 4 or 5 threes, he starts getting onto that roll. And I just think we're in a rut. And, it was such an important part of the playoff run for him to focus on other areas where, like, his 3-point shooting, if it went in, great. If it didn't, okay, I'll figure out a way to impact the game in another way. On Team USA, it's like you're only going to get 2 or 3 shots a game, so you better make it.
Yeah, and like, look, he's playing a lot of the times they're up 20. They're up 28, and so you're not going to be going 110%. You're not doing playoff intensity.
To be honest, I was more concerned with his misses at the rim than I was with his 3-point shooting. Like, just dunk the ball, bro. Like, come on.
Dude, that's what I was going to say. He had like 3, I think, very makeable bunnies where he missed. I know Embiid cleaned one up. I think somebody else might have cleaned it up.
And he got fouled on that, like on the dunk attempt on that one. But, even still, the spin on the baseline, left it short, like, you can dunk that, man. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but ultimately, I think he's fine. He has such a long track record of being at least a good shooter, maybe not a great shooter. And the misses at the rim, like that doesn't really concern me. He was good in the playoffs at the rim for the most part. So, all right, Tatum. I'm not a shoe guy. I'm very uncool. Do you have any takes on the Tatum threes, or do you want to just move on?
I mean, I saw them. I think I'm like you. I'm out of that world at this point in my life, but I thought I remember seeing like his prototype before his original, like the first editions got released, and I was like, this cannot be his poster shoe.
No. Yeah.
I feel like they look good. These ones, like, okay, cool. I'm sure it's not as bad. It's not as good. I mean, I don't know. I think the worst part will be debuting this shoe and then getting another DNP. It's like, I'm going to need, if Nike was so instrumental on keeping Jaylen Brown off the court, I'm going to need them to be instrumental to getting him on the court, Tatum to be on the court so they can, sell some shoes.
Yeah, make the call, Phil Knight. I know you got Kerr's number, man. You guys are both in the Northwest there. So, yeah, I mean, I have no conception. Like, people will have a shoe that I think looks ugly, and everyone's like, wow, that's fire. And then a shoe will come out, like Curry's came out, and everyone was hating on him. I'm like, I kind of like it.
Yeah, so. Then again, I was brought up with, like, the Shaq. Remember, it was like the
waves on the Shaq, like the black and white. Like,
I'm from an era where the shoes were disgustingly ugly. Yeah. So I don't know if I can accurately judge, a 2024 shoe.
I absolutely cannot. I know I can't accurately judge a 2024
I think it was the Hypnotics, the Shaq Hypnotics.
Yeah, man. That's a throw. That's like reaching deep in the memory vault.
It's like 1997.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. All right, real quick before we jump into our PrizePicks ad, we got to bring up the Australians. This is we've got 2 Aussies on the podcast. Those poor bastards hung tough, man. They had a huge lead that they blew, went to overtime, and then Serbia beats them in overtime 95-90. They kind of got Jokic at times. It wasn't Jokic's best game, but I think he had 21, 14, and 8. Some good defensive Jokic possessions in overtime.
Especially, in the overtime.
Yeah. And then, but, probably his last Olympics, Patty Mills goes out how he came in, man. 26 points, absolute flamethrower in the first half. And Giddey, 25, had a really good Olympics overall for Josh Giddey, too. So, I'm assuming you watched this one, but if you didn't, we can move on quick.
I think this is what I love about the FIBA World Cup and the Olympics is there are certain guys that just turn into these FIBA basketball monsters, right? You mentioned Patty Mills. Like, Patty Mills has destroyed Team USA. Dude. He just turns into a different level. Same thing with guys like Dennis Schroeder, Evan Fournier. Like, hilariously, all these former Celtics. Like, where was this when you were on the Celtics? But, I think for Australia, it's like, you get that close in a 40-minute game, up 24, like that's a game you have to win. And then Serbia just comes back and it's a 1-point game in 5 minutes. It's like, once you knew that they came back, I think that was their death sentence. Jokic, once you give him life, he hits you with the Sombor shuffle right in your eyeball. He's blocking shots at the rim. He's causing steals in transition. It's just like, that's my fear going into tomorrow is it's hard to beat that dude 3 times. And I think Bogdanovic is shooting the ball well. So, I was thinking of Ben and Jake when that was going on, because I'm sure they were like losing their minds up 24. But that, Jokic is like Thanos, man. It's like you really have to cut his head off to beat him.
Yeah, and it looks like the Nuggets might be cutting his head off with the offseason they've had. But yeah, I'm terrified, man, that we're going to have to play him again. Like, if there's one dude I didn't want to see in the semifinals, it's Nikola Jokic. So, but we'll see. Yeah, he's just, it just doesn't even matter who he's playing next to. He makes all these dudes just look so much better with the way he passed the ball. Although sometimes they like didn't give him the ball enough at times. It's kind of weird. I can't remember that one dude's name, but he was letting it fly, and Jokic was like, "Give me the fucking ball, dude."
But I will say, at the time, I thought, the Bulls, it was a disaster trade for them, flipping Caruso, not even getting a pick back from the Thunder. Josh Giddey, I felt like, played himself out of the rotation in the playoffs this year. If this is the Josh Giddey that the Bulls are going to get, I think as a Bulls fan, you're like over the moon at what you just brought in, given that, Lonzo's probably on the way out there and you need that playmaking point guard. I think if his shooting is going to end up being real, that's going to really help him, because, he was virtually unplayable for the Thunder down the stretch just because he couldn't hit a shot. So, if Olympics does translate, then Bulls fans should be excited.
Yeah, I actually really liked that trade for the Bulls. I was, I think, mocked at times in our Discord for liking it, but
I just like, how do you not even get a pick? They have 10,000 picks, and you can't even get a pick for a guy still under contract, which is bizarre.
I know. And it's like, dude, Presti, come on, dude. You have, I think they literally have like 16 first-round picks or something.
Well, they're going to run into the Danny Ainge problem where they're just going to have to offload these picks because they don't have roster spots for them. So.
Yeah, I don't really know what they're going to do with them, because like I assumed this offseason some picks were going to go out the door to get a big, but they just signed Hartenstein, so obviously they didn't use any there. So we'll see what they do. But Giddey's 21.
Yeah,
he's a big guard. He's a 6'7", like real point guard. So I think he's an intriguing prospect. If I'm the Bulls, I think I'd rather take Giddey than 2 late first round picks or something like that. At least Giddey's a good, good's maybe a little strong, but a solid NBA player at worst. And I think he showed he's got like a real ceiling. If the
issue is now though, like now you have to pay it. You have to be the team that pays him now. So. Big year for him. So if he's going to have a career year, and it looks like, because sometimes this stuff translates. Like Lauri Markkanen, if you remember, he went crazy in the FIBA World Cup for Finland, and then entered that year in the NBA, and it was like he turned into a $200 million player. So you never know.
It kind of was like last Olympics too. Like I think it was the Olympics where no, it might have been the World Cup where Tatum was. Yeah, it was the World Cup a couple years ago where Tatum was like the second leading. Yeah, where Tatum was like the second leading scorer.
That was the Olympics. That was Tokyo. Yeah, that was
Tokyo. Okay, yeah. So, and then that is when he was like all-star level, and then kind of after that Olympics is really when he kind of made that jump to all NBA. So I think for some dudes they can just like roll that momentum into the next regular season. So it'll be interesting to see what Giddey does, and he's gonna have plenty of opportunity because they're gonna give his ass the ball a lot.
They do not have a guard outside of Kobe White, so it's like.
Right.
Hopefully you can. But I felt for him because if you remember, they were down, I think, 4 points in the last 10 seconds, and he was short on that layup and then sprained his ankle. It's like, oh man, it's like insult to injury. It's like that's a tough way to leave Paris.
Yeah, that was brutal. He seemed pretty upset in the post-game interview too, which I don't blame him at all. You don't get many Olympics in your career, man. You only get a couple. So, all right, before we're gonna jump into France, Canada, but we gotta hear a message from PrizePicks.
PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. With the finals over, the hoops action doesn't stop on PrizePicks. Women's basketball is still heating up with stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese looking to make names for themselves alongside greats like Brianna Stewart and Aja Wilson. You could win up to 100 times your catch watching them ball out. I love how fun and simple the experience of playing with PrizePicks is. For the upcoming hoop schedule, I'll be looking at Caitlin Clark for more than 3.5 3-pointers made and Brianna Stewart for more than 23 points. I made my first $10 deposit and received an instant $10 bonus. If you have the skills, you can play for a shot at turning your $10 into $1,000. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Shout out to PrizePicks. It's super fun. Check it out. Use that promo code CLNS. Support the show. Support CLNS. France, Canada. This game was during my lunchtime mostly, so this is the one, other than the USA game, I was able to pay the most attention to. France wins 83. Actually, I think I have the score wrong, but they won by over 10. I think my biggest takeaway from this game is Danny Ainge hit on the Yabusele pick. I don't know. What do you think, Greeny?
That's why I tweeted out. He wasn't wrong. He was just early. That's all.
You're right.
Not wrong, just early. So that was everything I had been hoping for. What was it, 7 years ago? I mean, who even knows how long? But it's a nice reminder, and I think for Team USA especially, that, Canada was a roster of 10 NBA players, an MVP candidate. They were, a lot of people consider them to be a real threat. But in these games, none of that shit matters. It's who is better on that day. And if you don't come with the right mindset, you can get beat. So for me, it was like, I hope Team USA is watching this game as a wake-up call as opposed to, more than anything else. Of like, I think they would have beaten Canada had they gone through and faced them in the gold medal game. They beat them in the tune-up games. They're just too small for Team USA. But I just think it's just a nice reminder that FIBA basketball is weird. Weird shit happens. And you also got to factor in France is going to have some home cooking. So it's you add all that stuff up and, I think it was a surprise, but then, at the end of the day, Canada has underachieved in every tournament they've been in, right? Like they haven't medaled since 1936 or something crazy like that, I think it is. So I think it's more concerning how bad Jamal Murray looked than anything else. But for me, I just hope Team USA used it as a sign of what can happen tomorrow if they don't come, with the right mindset.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Canada, I think talent-wise, it's them or Germany for the easy number 2. France is kind of in there. I don't love France outside of Wemby, really, but Canada's got a lot of talent, and Wemby was destructive around the rim. I thought he blew up so many drives from these Canadian players other than SGA, SGA is comfortable pulling up floater range stuff like that, which is what you have to do against Wemby. But Dylan Brooks, these guys were just going absolutely nowhere. But yeah, to me, if I was a Nuggets fan, dude, I would start getting worried. We're kind of having these same conversations about Tatum, but the thing about Tatum is athletically he still looks great, and we just won the title.
Right.
I'm not really concerned. Murray looks a step slow to me. He was never a super athlete. So if he loses a step, it's holy shit, this guy's might be in real trouble. And he made 1 3 in the entire Olympic Games. That is concerning. And they needed him against this team. They've got all the rim protection in the world. They needed somebody to stick pull-up threes, even just a couple to draw the centers out of the paint, and he just couldn't do it. He did nothing. He had a huge turnover down the stretch when they were making a little run too. It was a disaster for Murray, all Olympics really.
And here's the conundrum, right? He wasn't all that great in the playoffs, right? No. He sort of limped to the finish line, has a terrible Olympics. The Nuggets have to make a choice, right? Are you going to commit a $200 million extension to him? So then in this new CBA world, you're pretty much locked in to the Jokic, MPJ, Murray trio. That's your core moving forward. KCP's out of the picture. They're relying on if he doesn't return to the version of Murray that we saw when they won the title, they're a cooked product. Their window is drastically different because, if they give him this extension and he continues to be injured, doesn't play up to that sort of level, who's going to want to trade for that contract, right? So now you're relying on 2 injury-prone guys and Jokic with a depleted bench. I don't know, man. It's like, it's crazy to think that their window could be closed, but I think that's why the Celtics need to take advantage of the window that they are in, because life in the NBA can change literally from one season to the next, right? Like everyone was saying, oh, this Nuggets team, we're about to see a dynasty. Here we are 2 summers later, and people are legitimately asking if their window is cooked, if Murray isn't going to be that same guy. So I think that's a much bigger issue than, the Team Canada stuff. That's whatever. It's more like with the West getting better,
Yep.
I thought it was interesting that they didn't sign that extension before the Olympics. Where is it? I'm still waiting on the Woj bomb. I'm seeing everybody else get their extensions. So it makes you wonder, like, if they're not going to extend him, do they trade him? But who's making that trade right now? It's a very interesting, situation for them.
Yeah, because like if you're not going to trade like for like no team with an all-star guard is going to be like, oh yeah, give us Jamal Murray for him.
Right.
So I don't really think their only choice is that they let him play this year out and hope he looks awesome, and then they give him the big contract next offseason. But like that, Utah tried to like shortchange Gordon Hayward similarly when he was in restricted free agency, and he said like, that's why I wanted to leave. What they did to me 4 years ago is why I wanted to leave. So you're kind of like playing with fire. He'll be a UFA next offseason. Like he has no obligation.
Right. And so on the flip side of that, even though he would have been restricted, is like Tyrese Maxey, right? Like they waited a year on his extension, then gave him the max. It all worked out. But if someone's an unrestricted free agent, and you're going to lose, that's why I think we're entering an era in the league where it's pay your guy now and figure it out later. We saw the Cavs do it, with Donovan Mitchell. We'll probably see, the Nuggets do it with Murray. The Celtics gave all those extensions. We'll figure it out later. Teams aren't really going to be pulling off trades for that, mid-tier salary number, just with how tough it is with the new CBA. And if you're over the apron and you're losing all these exemptions, you can't afford to lose these guys in unrestricted free agency. It makes more sense to pay the luxury tax bill to keep him and figure out everything later than to mess around and hope that he stays, because the Nuggets are still going to be close to that apron with or without Jamal Murray. So it's like, it's not like they get an additional $30 million to spend if he doesn't stay there. At least I'm under the impression that's how it works. So, I think teams are going to just fork over these massive, like the marketing deal. They just did it, right? Like he could have been an unrestricted free agent. You pay him now and you trade him later so you can protect the asset.
Yeah, and with somebody like Murray, right, where you're trying to get stuff back and still stay good, like Utah can just trade Markkanen for assets, right? Like they're not really trying to win right now. That might not be the smartest thing to do, but they could totally do that and it makes sense for them long term. If you trade Murray, you need to at least be nearly as good. And all the teams with good players who would want Jamal Murray because he's a good player, like Detroit doesn't need Jamal Murray. They don't want him. They're building for the future. Like you need to trade with other good teams. Those other teams are above the second apron, so they can't stack salaries to match his salary. So you can't even do like a 2-for-1 trade where you downgrade, Murray's the best player, but you get 2 good role players, because the other good teams can't do that because they're above the second apron. So yeah, you're right.
It's tough because, trading Lauri Markkanen is easy. He's a 7-foot stretch big. Yeah, everybody has good guards now. Like even the bad teams have guys like Cade Cunningham. Like they have young point guards that they want to invest in and develop. Like who is even the best team that needs a point guard? Miami. But like, why would Denver trade like or why would Miami or why would the Nuggets trade for like Tyler Hero for Jamal? Like that doesn't make sense for them.
Yeah.
So it's like even the good teams that don't even have a guard don't have a position to trade that would make the Nuggets better than having. It's a disaster for them. And frankly, it's just too bad. It's just, it's just, like, damn, that's just so bad. So
another contender.
I don't have those problems, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, right. We locked up our dude. So, so I think ultimately you're right. I think we probably will see an extension. I wonder if the new apron and the luxury tax getting even crazier, I wonder if we'll see some of these guys who were like 5 years ago clear dead bang max guys take like 30 million instead of, the max contract, which was like high 30s, 40s for a lot of these dudes. Just like, hey man, we just can't pay that $9 million is going to cost us $70 million in luxury tax. Like, just take 30. That's what's out there. Nobody else has cap space anyway, so they're not going to be able to offer you more. So I wonder if it's like takes kind of this second class, like the guys who are just below all-star level or have like one or two all-stars aren't like dead bang max guys anymore.
I think what we're going to see is what we just saw on the Celtics, right? Derek White could have gone to free agency and made more money, but he signed an early extension, which was technically the max, right? Like he didn't take a pay cut. He took a pay cut, but it's not like he didn't get max money. I think that is going to be the route where they sign early for a lower number that's still a max, but don't hit free agency to where they could get that fifth year, an additional 40 million. But I also think you're going to see teams overpay their role players because they're going to need these mid salaries to trade. Like we saw Pritchard get 32 mil, 7-8 mil a year. We just saw Sam Hauser get, 11 and a half. So it's like you can't just have 50 million and minimum salary guy. Like you're not going to be able to find trades with that, especially if you're one of these teams that can't aggregate. So like if you need a backup big and that backup big makes 11 million and you only have 30 million salaries and minimum salaries as a second apron team, you're screwed. What Brad has done is, and I think it's really smart, is he sprinkled out minimum, like Jaden Springer doesn't play and makes $4 million a year. That's valuable because there could be a guy who gets injured and you need his replacement makes $3 million. Well, that's more than a league minimum salary, so you use the Springer contract. Same thing with Hauser, right? When this team ultimately has to start shedding salary, which will come, I think we all can accept that. I would rather they shed off a guy that makes 11 than a guy that makes 35. So in order to do that, you need to reward. And, I think there are some out there that think Hauser could have gotten, Duncan Robinson deal or 18, 19 million a year. Sure, maybe, but 11 and a half for him is a pretty good number. If you're talking about potential trades down the line, that opens up your wave of candidates to a much broader field because he is a proven shooter. He doesn't make a shit ton of money, and it's not a max salary that a team is going to be like, oh, I don't want to blow up my, 35% of my cap space on an aging Drew Holiday, but I'll blow up 7% of my cap space for a, moderately priced Sam Hauser. I just think that's a better way to orchestrate your cap.
Yeah, and it's just functionally easier when guys are making less money to make trades. It's kind of what Philly basically did it with KJ Martin. Like they gave him, they overpaid him. I think he's making $8 million a year, and people are speculating, and I think they're right. Is like because now he's much more tradable on $8 million than he is on $4 million. You can just get a different level of player. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how everything plays out under the new cap. But before we jump into the semifinal games. Real quick, Germany just kind of handled Greece. Mostly
FIBA Dennis.
Win. FIBA Dennis beasted, man. 13-8. Franz had 18. Both the Wagners have looked pretty damn good in Olympic basketball. Just a really balanced attack from this Germany team, who I think is pretty clearly the second best team and has been
easily.
In the Olympics.
Yeah, they were the best team in the FIBA World Cup. They have size. They have good guard play. They have shooting. They, have continuity. I mean, they've been together for a long time. So I think, to me, they are the U.S.'s toughest challenge should both teams make it through. And, I mean, listen, they only have, I think, 4 or 5 NBA guys on their roster, but their NBA guys are those group of FIBA Mo Wagner turns into he's an all-star big in FIBA. So it's like it's tough to comprehend how Dennis Schroeder is the best point guard on the planet, but you just have to accept that FIBA Dennis just is a different animal. So I don't think they're a team that would, take the U.S. lightly, wouldn't be intimidated by them. And if you remember from the World Cup, they just could not stop anybody, whether it was Schroeder or Franz Wagner, from getting into the paint.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's gonna continue, you're gonna see a tough game because the Daniel Tice is gonna come up with some blocks. I just think they're a well-balanced team that has the talent to hang with you should you make it to a gold medal game. So, rooting for France.
Yeah, right, for sure. And I hit on this last show very quickly, but like Franz represents something no other team in the tournament has other than the United States. Borderline elite two-way wing. Those dudes just like don't exist on other teams. The USA has like all of those guys.
Yeah, they are only two-way players. Yeah, two-way.
Right. Yeah, so like Franz is like the one dude who is kind of on that level as a wing in the tournament. Like the guy after him is like RJ Barrett or something,
Or minus Yabu if you want to play Yabu with a 3,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's comfortable all over the court. But yeah, Giannis like 22, 4 turnovers, led the game in scoring. I think making the knockouts is probably about as good as you can expect from this Greece roster.
Yeah, I mean they couldn't hit a shot to save their life. Giannis averaged 28 a game on a 70% true shooting percentage with zero spacing. Like he was, and it's interesting because it makes you wonder if how far away from the Giannis that we saw in the Olympics was he in that Indiana series? Because it's like, if you could have played him a game or two, does that make a difference in how that series plays out? But, you obviously don't want to risk it. But, like, he looked just as dominant in this Olympics as any other, Giannis we've ever seen. But, it was the first time they made the Olympics since 2008, making it to the knockout stage, even though they had a negative point differential. Like, whatever. That's still an unbelievable accomplishment given because, like, they literally could not shoot the basketball. So,
right.
Even their best player doesn't even really shoot. So, for them, it's cool. But, I was surprised that Calathes was such a poor free throw shooter. I feel like I remember him as a guard in Florida, like being able to make free throws. And then I remember during the broadcast, they were like, yeah, he shoots like 51% from the line. It's like, what?
Bizarre. Yeah.
How do you, as a point guard, shoot 51% from the line? But, good for them. And, I'm sure they'll be back as long as Giannis is alive and decides to play. So,
yeah, he's at the very least got one more Olympics in us. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Calathes was bald at Florida too.
I know, that's crazy. That is true.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into the semifinal games. But before we do, our last message from GameTime. GameTime. I live in the shadow of the newest MLB sensation, Paul Skeens. He's absolutely electric. Pitcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I'm looking forward to making the hour trip up to Pittsburgh and catching a Skeens start with GameTime. GameTime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. We actually just used GameTime to pick up our Summer League tickets, and I just attended a soccer game up in Pittsburgh featuring my least favorite Premier League team, Liverpool FC, all thanks to GameTime. Mo Salah, bald now. I had no idea, but he pulled the Jake Eisenberg and shaved it all off. Yep. GameTime is just super easy to navigate. You can pick up last-minute tickets. They've got flash deals where you save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. Zone deals where you can save when you choose a section and let GameTime choose the actual seats. And I think my favorite feature is you toggle on all-in pricing. The price shows up the total up front, no surprises or fees at checkout. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. GameTime rocks. We appreciate them being our sponsor and sponsor of all CLNS. It's super easy to use, really awesome. So check it out. Okay, quick take on the semifinals games. Kind of lame. We've seen both of these matchups already in the Olympics, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen Serbia twice, in the tune-up games and then in group stage. And then Canada, France, Germany. It's like, it would have been nice to see new blood in there. But at the same time, I feel like when the tournament first started, if you had to pick 4 teams to make the Final Four, these, maybe people wouldn't have picked France, but at the same time, the Wemby factor, I think, would have gotten them some votes. So, it's no surprise that at least Serbia, the U.S., and Germany, like, they're the top 3-4 teams in FIBA rankings. So that's not surprising. I just, I hope for health. I hope for a U.S. blowout and then a close game on the other side of the bracket. But, I think it's always better when the best teams make the deep runs. So, like, it would have been lame if, Team USA had a cake schedule and it's like, at least Serbia and Jokic will provide some intrigue because they played Team USA even in the Jokic minutes in the group stage. So I'm all for intrigue as long as it ultimately ends in blowout for Team USA. But, I'm never going to thumb my nose up at seeing Wemby or anything like that. I mean, he's just as fun as anybody else.
Yeah, for sure. And Ben made this sweet graphic for this segment, so I've got to put it up now. But France, Germany, 5.5 point favorites. USA 17.5 point favorites, which is like pretty wild that we're almost looking at a 20-point line in the semifinals, but such is the way with Team USA. So France, Germany, I think it's a pretty interesting matchup. Like, Schroeder is just way more comfortable shooting from this 3-point line than he is from the NBA line. It's a little bit shorter. And it's the type of shot, like, you never take, like a 22-footer in the NBA because it's just a long shitty 2. But in FIBA, it's worth 3. And, like, he's been ripping it from 3 every game. So I understand why Germany's favorite. I think this is an interesting matchup. People have been, I think Canada is actually a bigger favorite against France than this Germany team is, which is surprising. So I think France probably bought themselves some respect with that win over Canada. But like the France-Canada game, I could see this one going either way, but ultimately I just think Germany's the second best team and they'll probably eke out against
them. They have the better guard play. And and in FIBA, you need good guard play to truly be, unless you have Jokic, right? So it's like, they're surviving without it, but their guards actually aren't half as bad. France's guards, I think, have, really been their Achilles heel. It hasn't burned them yet. But, Wemby can't throw up a 5-point. Like, he's going to have to be the Wemby we're accustomed to seeing. But I don't know. I just think Germany's the more complete team. They have the experience. They have the continuity. They're the defending world champions. I just think, you have to give respect to what they've built and hope that France pulls off the upset because, if you're surprised by a minus 17.5 line in the semifinal, if it's France, Team USA, that could be like a 25-point line for the finals. Like, that's not even going to be close.
Yeah, and for sure, I mean, it's basically just Wemby, and I think you could make an argument like 80 is probably a better player than Wemby right now, although next year that might not be the case. So we have them at every position. Germany,
but that's what makes us. Yeah. That's what makes it unfair. It's like, if you want to go big, we can go big. If you want to go small, we can go small. It's like we can play Tatum at the 5, and then you're not going to know what to do. So it's like nobody has the versatility that Team USA has, as long as Steve Kerr isn't a bozo and remembers to use his versatility.
Yeah.
So it's just like, there's definitely a Grand Canyon-sized gap. I think everyone's a little too – the rest of the world is catching up. I think that's overplayed a little bit. But, we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out because, like I said, if you don't come ready, you can get beat.
Yeah, and like I feel like the world is catching up in the sense that like Germany has, a good amount of NBA players. Yeah. Like 25 years ago, it was like they have one guy, right?
They have Dirk.
But
they got Dirk.
Right, exactly. Team USA is all stars. Like, then that's just completely different than Dennis Schroeder, who's like a nice bench guard, right?
Right. So, it's like we don't have any guy who's a decent starter.
Right.
A guy who can't play for us was an all-star and was just in the Eastern Conference Finals tearing it up, and he can't even get on the court. So it's a little bit of a different thing.
Yeah, Tatum's getting 8 minutes a game. He's an All-NBA first-team player.
Yeah.
Like, that's absurd. So, yeah, the Serbia matchup, we've seen it. I think we kind of know what to expect. Jokic is going to have to go bananas for them, but he can. And, yeah, like Micic, he had a terrible game in the quarterfinals, but he's like a solid guard. He was in the NBA last year, and I'm a Bogdan guy.
It all comes down to Bogdanović. I think he's the swing guy for them. If he's on like he has been these last 2 games for them, there are much more because if you remember, when Jokic went out, it was Bogdanovic that carried them through any sort of comeback attempt. He was the one that really solidified, kept Australia at bay.
Yep.
That was how we beat Serbia in the group stage, was they couldn't survive the non-Jokic minutes. Well, if Bogdanovic is going to help them do that, it changes the entire dynamic of this matchup. So for me, he's the most, you're not going to stop Jokic. He's going to cook anybody. Yeah. It's can you stop the guys around him, specifically Bogdanovic. You have to take away his three. If you don't do that, then you're going to be in for a much closer game than you think.
Yeah, and Bogey is one of those dudes, like when he gets hot, it immediately.
Red hot.
And he is like red hot, like he will take 28-foot threes off the bounce and they'll go down. And he's a shit talker extraordinaire, dude. Like you're going to hear it when he gets hot. So he can change a game, man. And he's got good chemistry with Jokic. They've been playing together for a long time now at this point. So, he's the guy. Yeah, you absolutely got to shut the door on him and then just do what you can on Jokic. And so, like, talent-wise, like, obviously the USA is just way better 1 through 5, 1 through 10 than Serbia. But they're playing them, you said it earlier, like, playing Jokic for the third time. Like, he is one of those dudes who, like, figures things out against teams. Yeah. And it's not like Kerr's been going deep in the defensive playbook or anything. It's been pretty rote, like, oh, is Embiid in the game? No. Okay, then we're switching. Embiid's in the game? Okay, we're
going to play drop.
yeah. And that's it. And Jokic will tear that apart if you don't mix it up on him. So I'll be interested to see. Like, to me, it's whether Embiid plays or not is really going to change how we look on both ends. Because if he's healthy, I think Embiid's going to play a good amount.
Yeah, honestly, it would just be so much more relaxing and stress-free if we just got a vintage Steph Curry 7 3-pointer game. Like, where's that been? Like, he hasn't shown that at all this Olympics, right? Yeah. So I just think if I'm anticipating Serbia's going to spam, it's like trying to beat the Celtics. What do? You spam threes and you hope they turn it over. Yeah. Well, Team USA has had ball security problems, and there have been times where they've been losing the math game, and then ultimately they just, out-talent, the opposition. But if you remember, like during Puerto Rico, when Puerto Rico got off to that crazy first quarter, they were losing the basketball math. And you do that in one quarter and you give Jokic life. We just saw what happens when you give Nikola Jokic life in FIBA. Like, he's going to make you pay for it. So once you reach these knockout games, it's like you can't just have one bad first quarter and then just turn it on later. You have to be locked in, ready to go. And I just feel like if they start raining threes and Bogey gets going and Team USA maybe starts cold, that's how you get into trouble. And we saw it happen in earlier rounds. They were just able to eventually out-talent them. But, there's going to be – it doesn't even matter if it's the starting unit. Team USA is not going to have the best player on the floor when Jokic is playing. So it's like that's the only game and only matchup that problem exists in. So I'm just fascinated to see what they do and how they look. Like, were they holding stuff back in these first two meetings, and now we're going to unleash the real plan? Because, even with Embiid on the floor, Jokic had his way with him. I don't even think any of them defended him at an acceptable level. So, we'll just have to see.
Yeah, and like Jokic can rack up fouls on you, and that puts guys out of position or changes the rotation. Although I'm not really sure what the hell Steve
what even is the
are right now, but but if he's got a plan going in, foul trouble can undermine the plan. And the one thing I'll say is, like, you're right, we've looked bad when we've turned it over a lot, and there's been like the South Sudan exhibition game. There was too many turnovers. LeBron had that 6 turnover game, might have been against Puerto Rico, and that's when they started off hot. I don't know if Serbia's kind of got the horses on the wing and at guard defensively to make us uncomfortable enough where we're turning it over a lot. But there's also been times where like Embiid's just throwing it into the stands.
That's what I mean. Like CTE basketball turnovers just like cannot, like, it's time to be serious, right? Like, that's fine for the tune-up games, for the group stage. Like, we know you're making it out of that. Now it's like, all right, like, this is why we're at the Olympics, is to win these games. So, I wouldn't hate if Steve Kerr says, you know what? let's try running offense through our point guards, who also happen to be fantastic offensive initiators, instead of only doing things through point forwards or having Ant create off the dribble when he can't pass. It's like, use Steph Curry as an offense creator. Use Derek White. Use Drew Holiday. Like, these are guys that know how to run an offense around other stars. It just baffles me that they all just keep going into this default point forward, and yet he's not letting Jayson Tatum be a point forward. It's It's like, okay, you don't want your guards to handle the ball, but you don't want a guy who just ran the most efficient offense in NBA history as a point forward to run your offense. He's such a bozo. I can't stand it.
I was talking about this as like, Tatum just picked apart the entire playoffs with his playmaking. Like, we just won a title partially on the back of Jayson Tatum's playmaking, and he's like setting pin downs for Devin Booker, and that's like his primary offensive role. It's very frustrating.
And, to that point, and I don't want to only harp on Steve Kerr, where's Eric Spoelstra and Ty Lue? Are they complicit in this strategy? If so, they're just as much of a bozo as them. So it's like, I want to know, are they saying, no, Steve, we should do this? And he says, no, I'm the head coach. We're doing it my way. Or are they like, wow, Steve, this is such a great idea. You're a genius. If it's that one, I don't want either of those guys on the 2028 team either. They can all get the hell out.
Yeah, it's got to be Mazzulla and his staff in 2028. Damn it, let's go.
I don't even need that. Like, have it be Mark Dagnall. I don't care. Just somebody that understands. Awesome. Someone that understands. Maybe you should give the keys to a guy that knows how to run the most efficient offense the NBA has ever seen. Seems like a decent idea. I don't know.
Imagine that. That'd be crazy. And he had some nice post-ups against Puerto Rico. Where the hell's that? Like, Tatum, they're hiding guards on him and shit. Like, put him in the post. But regardless, okay, real quick, Greeny, France or Germany? Who you got?
No, I got Germany. Germany, US is my final.
Yeah, same. And do you think USA covers that 17.5? It's a big number.
I don't know. Probably not. I mean, I just think. I mean, what was they didn't beat them by? Did they beat them by over 17 in their group stage?
I think it was 26.
Oh, it was? Oh, that's right. Yeah. That was the whole deal.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's tough because I thought their game against Brazil was the most we've seen them look like a team that was playing to their potential, but it was also against a team that didn't even come close talent-wise. So I want to say things will be a little bit tighter in the semifinals, but having said that, they'll probably have their best game of the Olympics and win by 40. Yeah. So who knows?
Yeah, I think they probably cover. I think you're right. I think this is the game where they truly start taking it seriously. And I could see a pretty big blowout here. But who the hell knows? It's Jokic.
I hope so.
Yeah. Dre, real quick, Anthony Edwards has been amazing. Yeah, he's been good. Devin Booker's been great. But I think we'll just leave it at that, Greeny. Where can the people find you?
Barstool Sports every day on Twitter at Stool Greeny. I'm just in my summer of glory, just triggering all these opposing fan bases. It's fantastic. It's no better way I would want to spend my summer. So if you want to join in on that fun, it's there every day.
Hell yeah, man. Follow Greeny, follow us, like, subscribe. Spoonie, Greeny, we are out. Peace.